Hey, Paul.
Good morning, afternoon, Yitzy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am good. I had like a solid 9 hours of sleep last night, and I really needed it.
So
So
jealous.
I actually feel surprisingly fresh this morning, and I even went for a run. So it's good.
Where are you
Yeah,
in the world right now?
I'm in New York City today. How about you?
In New York City. But I thought you live in New York City.
No, I live in San
In
Francisco.
San Francisco. Okay. I am in Israel right now. But was in Cyprus yesterday and Austria last week and going to Argentina in well, not next week, but the week after. Hopefully I'll see you there.
You will. You will. I
Um,
will be there. How was Cyprus? Well, every time I go, I'm just like, no place can be this hot and also this insanely expensive.
Cyprus, Israel
Yeah.
is like Cyprus is like Israel in the 50s. So like it's super cheap and the weather's like a tiny bit better. So um,
You think Cyprus is cheap? I can remember a 40 euro appetizer from a hotel in Nicosia, and I was like, this is bananas. Like,
you're not going to the right places. Next time, let me show you around. But no, Israel is insanely expensive, like on all accounts and everything. So
certainly the hotels are bananas. Like, a good hotel in Tel Aviv is among the most expensive that I pay for in the world when I go.
yeah, fair enough. Like I could take my whole family away to Europe for 10 days to a hotel, all expenses paid, including flights, for cheaper than going for 3 days to a hotel here in Israel.
Yeah,
um,
it's for some reason it is kind of pricey. So
yeah. Well, you and I met in Israel, and I thought for a minute like that was our first time, but then I realized that we actually met previously, and I want you to know, and this is going to sound a little bit awkward, that I actually think about you every night when I go to bed.
no, I'm going to take that as a great
Well,
compliment.
just try and think why, maybe.
I don't want to know why. I want to know I want to imagine the best possible reason for this, which is that I just look amazing.
Well, that
but
obviously, but also like I vet anybody in the crypto space based on the quality of their swag. Okay. Some people's swag is better. Some people's is less good. Some people's is more useful. Some people's is less. But my EY boxer shorts that I got from you, I believe in Singapore, right? Are like my absolute favorite pajama pants of all time. I managed to grab 3 pairs by sending different people to get them from you at different points in the conference, and they are literally my go-to pajamas. So like every time I go to bed, I think EY blockchain and the blockchain Ethereum Alliance. I am forever indebted to you.
that's now. Do you know the full story of that swag?
I don't, but we're going to hear all about it
Okay.
now.
Okay. It's actually a good story. So, um, we've always had T-shirts, and quite a lot of people like crypto socks. And I was like, this is ridiculous, right? The complete base layer is socks, underwear, and a T-shirt. So I went to like the marketing team. I'm like, listen, we need to complete the clothing pun, right? If we want it, we're telling clients to make Ethereum their base layer. So we need to complete the clothing pun by getting underwear. And they're like, Paul, EY is never, ever going to buy you underwear. And I was like, no. We're going to call it unisex leisure attire.
Well, that's what I love about it. It doesn't have like a fly opening,
fly.
so it's really shorts, right?
Yeah, it's fabric shorts. But
my kids hate when I take them out to the bus stop wearing my underwear in the morning. But like these are acceptable. Like they're like, there's no fly. You could wear your EOI shorts,
okay.
Which is another
But
reason
you
why
know
I love them.
But yeah, so it's a clothing pun, right? Make Ethereum your base layer. And
I love it.
No one gets it. And the problem with jokes is if you have to explain them, they're just not funny enough. So that is what you have there is the first and last run, probably in human history, of EY
There
boxer
you go,
shorts.
ladies and gentlemen. EY boxer shorts right there. Yeah. Okay. Welcome to Beyond the Code, the podcast where industry experts and brilliant legal minds discuss the impact of new emerging technologies. I'm your host, Yitzy Hammer, a lawyer and tech enthusiast. Join us as we explore the legal, regulatory, and ethical issues surrounding AI, blockchain, and more. Get ready to go beyond the code and stay ahead of the game. So I didn't even have an opportunity to introduce you yet. Paul, if you don't mind, I'm going to do something that I've never done before. I want to like get us in the groove a little bit with a little bit of music just to like pump us up. Okay.
Okay,
So
that
just
sounds
like,
good.
I don't know. Can you hear on your end? Because this is my first time doing
I
this.
can.
You can. Okay, good. Okay. We are welcoming EY's Paul Brody to the show today. Paul is, in addition to being the #1 selector of crypto swag ever, also just a ambassador for the Ethereum blockchain generally. And I guess you'll tell us a little bit more about that, what the Alliance is exactly, and how you fell in love with Ethereum specifically, and why you think it's better than all other chains, because clearly you do. And also what you're doing at EY, and also what you did previously, and how you kind of got to where you are today. I don't know if you have an opportunity to listen to other episodes, but we like to go like very deep on this show. And recently I kind of thought about, how I take people on these like deep, interviews or whatever, going into their past. It's supposed to be like about like the topic of the show is supposed to be emerging tech and law and regulation. But what I kind of realized, and what I really like about like LinkedIn generally, is that in today's day and age, like you could really go and look at people's portfolio profiles and understand this is the career path they did. This is how they got to this point. Obviously, like it's a lot more nuanced and layered than that. But like you could learn a lot just by seeing like what career choices people made and how they got there, and learn a lot when you're young and, trying to set your own path. And that's kind of what I like to do on the show. To try to, really understand how people like yourselves, who I think are, tremendously successful, got to where they got to, the better choices they made on the way, and sometimes the wrong choices, which are no less important for learning and understanding what, makes things work and what doesn't. So welcome to the show, Paul. I'm very excited to hear a little bit more about you and your background and what you're working on nowadays.
Well, thank you for having me. I kind of really, you mentioned one of those things that I also quite like about LinkedIn, which is you can look back at somebody and be like, how on earth did they get there? Like, what were all the zigs and zags? And sometimes it makes perfect sense, right? Studied undergraduate, went into the career. But I would say more often than not, like you're like, understanding how they connect the dots is very interesting. I know a lot of people have sort of looked up my sort of LinkedIn and like, wait a minute, you did African studies in university and like along with economics, like how on earth did you get here? And so to me, it's a story I love telling, and it's one I also love hearing about from other people. I love kind of knowing the backstory. I love knowing where people are from. It illuminates so much about kind of how they might see the world.
100%. So take me through your backstory.
So, like I said, actually, it's funny. So my very first visit to Israel came when I was in university.
Okay.
I was studying African studies, and I sort of got into African studies entirely by accident. My university, one of these places, like you got to take certain courses for your major, which was economics, but you have to take other classes. And so I took one on African history. And it's like, wow, this is really cool. I grew up in England and the United States. We learned a lot of British history. We learned a lot of American history. One thing that they did not talk about at all was African history. So I get into university and we start talking about African history. I'm like, wow, this is cool, interesting, new stuff. So I took one class, then I took another, and then I took another. And I was like, you know what? I've never been to Africa. I would like to go. And I really need somebody to pay for me to go. So I got to find a job. And the Financial Times ran this like little segment called like Doing Business in Africa. I kid you not, I cold called the CEO of every company profiled in that thing and asked for a job. And eventually, I got one. I got one working at the first mobile phone network operator in Nigeria as a summer intern, and which turned into a full year off. But this company was founded by some Americans. A company called MTS. Everyone thinks it was MTN, but MTS came before MTN. And it was founded by some African Americans living in Atlanta, and then they proceeded to hire a team out of Motorola, Israel.
Okay.
And those people who don't know the history, Israel's always been a high-tech country. Motorola made Israel one of its like flagship locations for building out mobile phone technology. So I, an American, went to work in Nigeria for a group of people from Israel, right? And after about 9 months, the managing director said, Paul, like, I'm going home for Passover. I think it was Passover. That's in the spring, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, just come with us, right? There won't be any good bread, but everything else will be fine. And he knew I liked bread. We had a bit of a running joke. There was a bakery in Lagos that I was trying to teach how to make like things that I liked as an American. And the French owner was like, no. He's like, I will not do it. But we went to Israel. So that was my very first trip to Israel, was working in when I was living in Nigeria. But I always loved technology. So it was this like perfect marriage. Like, I'm studying economics. I love technology. I'm learning about Africa. We had an absolutely amazing time, and it also got me my first visit to Israel. So
And then
that
there
is,
was
and
like
and
a military coup while you were there, no?
there was a military coup while I was there. We had martial law. We actually had I had one of these moments that I'm incredibly proud of. It was really amazing. So I'm like the marketing intern, right?
Okay.
And the banks are closed. It's Friday. We're trying to pay all our workers on Friday, but we usually pay them in cash because like your average Nigerian, even back in the 90s, didn't have a bank account.
Pre-crypto.
We had no cash. And so, and we couldn't get to the bank to get cash. Conversely, I had this idea. It's like, this is crazy, but I think that people down the street have cash because Swissair was selling plane tickets and people were obviously trying to leave the country. They couldn't deposit their cash. So I walked down the street. It was literally a walk because it was like 3 blocks. And I went into the Swissair office and I said, listen, I'll cut you guys a deal. We need cash for payroll and you need to get rid of your cash so that you're not with a security threat, because you don't want to sit around with a lot of cash. So they're like, okay. And so literally there in the managing director's office, we wrote an IOU. He gave me the week's payroll in cash. I wrote him an IOU so that we would return all the week's payroll cash and we would give them 2 cell phones when the network started operating. I then proceeded
The
to
best
stuff all the
currency.
cash in the backpack, walk back down the street in the middle of a military coup, and go into the managing director's office in the MTS office in Lagos. And I was like, okay, I got payroll. And so the summer intern,
Wait, I lost your
the
camera,
summer
Paul.
intern got payroll.
Okay, you're back.
And that is the best. That's the only really good story I have from Nigeria. I have other good stories, which I probably shouldn't tell, but that
Tell,
was
tell. Go ahead.
it was so fun to blow everybody's mind like that. They're like, how did the summer intern get payroll? And I'm like, oh, by the way, we do owe them 2 phones when the network comes on.
Amazing. I guess that's like what makes you a good marketing intern. Like if you're able to go and literally sell Swissair, like give us your cash, we'll figure it out later. Give you some cell phones. Like that's a sign of like a successful internship.
I think it is, yes. So, and then I went back to school. I hadn't finished university, but a year in Africa made me a very interesting candidate. And so I admit, like, I ended up, I feel like I got a pretty good job out of university. And one thing led to another, and I ended up I liked technology. And I ended up moving to South Korea to do consulting work. And I
Cool.
had clients in Samsung. And it was very interesting because I was working at McKinsey at the time. And I was really bummed that I wanted to go to Japan. Like I wanted to go do stuff at Sony or whatever. They're like, we don't really have any work of that kind in Japan, but we need people in South Korea. So, and there's this company, Samsung, and they want to be like the biggest electronics company on earth.
Go
And
figure.
go figure, like, and it was funny because, when you see the inside of any company, when you see the inside, you're like, how on earth did they do it? Like, it's chaos here. Like, no one knows what they're doing. And from the outside, they look like this well-oiled machine. But from the inside, it's not just, it's every company on earth. It looks like chaos, right? And you just think like, this is crazy. I've consulted to some of the biggest companies on earth. Universally, when you're inside and you see how the sausage is made, you cannot believe that they can keep the lights on.
100%. Like I'm a lawyer and I did my legal internship like in an M&A department. And I always say that the best thing about being an intern in an M&A department is that for every deal, I had to do diligence on the company that we were looking to acquire or that was acquiring. And when you do like full due diligence of like 10 or 15 years of a company's history and you read all the board resolutions and everything and you see like, this is where this might have gone wrong. This is where this, or what a effing mess this whole thing is. It's amazing that we're getting to acquisition stage. So you really learn a lot about the life cycle of a company, what worked, what didn't, what went wrong. So yeah, I could definitely appreciate that.
And I have more understanding now that, like, basically for successful organizations, still 9 things out of 10 are a catastrophe and go horribly wrong. Like venture cap, when you're a large company, you have some core business that keeps your business going, right? But the rules that apply to venture capitalists also kind of apply to lots of other things that large companies do. We don't see the fact that they don't work, but a lot of times they really don't work. And it's not because people are evil or stupid. It's just that it's really hard to coordinate. An action, organization, manage, scale is insanely difficult. And it's super interesting because I think at the heart of it, like transaction cost coordination, the topics that people talk about in the world of blockchain, these are like the theory of the firm. These are all like these questions that are pretty like universal, which is how do you get large groups of people to work together in some effective way to make meaningful progress in the world happen, whether it's getting nice new pairs of shoes or nice pairs of boxer shorts out or kind of transforming the entire global supply chain. It doesn't matter. It's like always basically the same set of problems.
Absolutely. I'm 100% in agreement. So where'd you go from there?
I spent a couple years at McKinsey, and then I sort of thought about business school, and I wasn't quite ready for that. I didn't want to go back to school just yet. So I love technology. So I went to work for a bunch of tech startups. First was a really cool company called i2 Technologies. They did like one of the early kind of pioneers of constraint-based planning. I remember my first week on the job. We went to this really famous large company with a massive global supply chain, and we were interviewing people and trying to understand, like, how should we implement the software and where would it create value? And all day, this is my first week on the job. I'm fresh out of McKinsey. I have no background in enterprise software. People are like, so we do this in Excel and we do this in Excel. And at the end of the day, I asked my boss, Tim, I'm like, Tim, so is there like some big enterprise computing system that just happens to have the same name as a spreadsheet? And he's like, no, Paul, they're talking about the spreadsheet. I'm like, are you telling me that these people are running a $10 billion a year supply chain in Excel? And he's like, yes, they are.
And that was before like shared documents.
That was before shared. They were literally
just passing this thing
around. They were literally walking around diskettes with Excel files on them, and we're like, this is the supply plan. And that was such a great experience. I loved it. I spent 2 years there. I went to like a smaller startup for a higher position. They went broke. I then helped co-found a company that was focused on spend management. That was really fun. But at that point, I had a couple of aha moments about myself. The first was I thought, I'm not a founder. Like, I'm probably not going to found a company. This turned out to be wrong. Actually, everything I thought turned out to be wrong. But the first was like, I'm not gonna be a founder. And the second was, I do want to be the CEO of a company. And I was looking at Google and some of these other places, and I was like, what they do is when they get into this hyper growth stage, they go to a big company and they hire adult supervision. So it's like, I'm going to go to IBM and I'm going to learn how to be adult supervision. And so I went to IBM, and I thought, okay, I'll stay 2 or 3 years. I'll kind of learn big company systems. And all told, I ended up spending about 14 years at IBM. I had a great time.
But when you went to IBM, like, what were not so much what your qualifications were, but like, what did you define yourself as? Like, were you a marketing guy? Were you a tech guy? Were you a management guy? Like,
I was a supply chain guy.
Okay.
So I went to IBM and I joined the supply. I had spent 3 back-to-back like supply chain startups, right? Supply constraint-based planning, cross-border logistics, and procurement. So I went to IBM as a supply chain guy, and basically ended up running the global supply chain strategy group, and eventually became the VP of the global electronics industry, largely on the strength of a lot of supply chain expertise, a huge portion of which happened to be tech related for a couple of reasons. Number one, IBM was itself in the high technology supply chain business. And so we had a lot of expertise. And then secondly, one of the super interesting things about the electronics industry is that the value of things that you make in electronics like drops precipitously, right? The day you open your new phone, like it's dropped 20% in value, and like a year later, it's worth half. And that's true for stuff that's not even, it's still in the box, right? Basically, by the time, if you leave something in a box for several months, it's less valuable. much less valuable. In fact, basically, high-tech inventory tends to depreciate at a rate of 20 or 30% a year. And so tech
Nobody
firms,
buys it as an investment. Like in the end, you buy
right,
it
you
for
buy it to use
practicality
it.
only. Use it until it has no use anymore, and then you buy the newer thing.
Well, not only that, but what you have to remember is in less than a year, something new will be out that will be better and cheaper. So when you make it, you had better sell it quickly. And
Interesting.
so
Okay.
high-tech companies turn out to be really good at like supply chain management because the cost of holding on to stuff badly is really high. Like, you know,
Interesting.
if you are stuck with a bunch of last year's models, it's not worth 10% less, it's worth 50% less. So tech companies turn out to be very disciplined supply chain managers.
Interesting. I never thought about it that way. So like who's in control of like getting out there? Like the supply chain guys or the marketing guys? Like you need to sell this before you move it.
Okay,
Like
this gives me a chance to tell one of the best stories of my entire like supply chain life.
okay.
So there's a discipline in supply chain called sales and operation planning because it's not just a responsibility of supply chain guys. It's a shared responsibility. The supply chain people make stuff, but the marketing people are responsible for selling it. And the best way that this works in theory
It's a
is
bit of a
that
chicken and an egg situation.
and they sit together and they have these interlock meetings. Now, this is the best practice, which I have almost never, ever seen done in person, but I have seen it done at one place. And I think even though I'm technically, it was 25 years ago, so or 20 years ago that this happened to me, so I think I can safely talk about it. When I joined EY, I'm sorry, when I joined I2
IBM.
Technologies, we were, I want to say about a year and a half later, this was like 1997, we were brought in to Apple. To work on like constraint-based planning for Apple. And so as part of the process, we got to see a sales and operations planning meeting happen at Apple. It is the only place in my entire life where I have seen sales and marketing and supply chain actually sit together in a room and do the plan. And the story I remember is really interesting. Basically, this is in the old days. Motorola, I think, was still making the CPUs. Yield on the high-end CPUs was very low. And so the problem that they were going to have is that their Christmas sales plan was calling to sell a lot of high-end Macs, but their supply wasn't going to be available. Right? They were going to have a lot more mid-range just because of the yield issues on the chip. And in that meeting, sales, marketing, and supply chain got together and redid the plan. They redid the marketing plan. What are they going to advertise? How are they going to spiff the dealers? Everything based on the available supply. And they interlocked to keep the revenue and the profit margin the same. It was incredibly impressive. I have never seen any other firm do it. I assume Apple still does it to this day. It's like I was like,
it's like a
I have
symphony.
never actually gone to a company and seen a textbook example of how it's done other than this. And yeah, so there is a way that it is supposed to work. It doesn't happen often in real life, but when it does, it's very impressive.
Okay, so the beauty and harmony of supply chain economics. And
about 3/4 of the way through my IBM career, I left to join a startup, to co-found a startup, no less.
Okay.
We flamed out spectacularly at great speed. We had a very cool idea, and it was a friend of mine from I2 Technology. He came to me with this idea, and he's like, listen, I have this cool idea, and it combines some regulatory and legal insights in a way that we can basically we can do online movie streaming that's competitive with Netflix at a much lower cost. And he was wrong.
Netflix was already streaming at that time?
They were just starting to.
Okay.
He was wrong.
He was wrong on the numbers, or he was wrong on the tech?
He was wrong on the law.
Okay.
And to be fair to him, the movie studios that didn't like this were very aggressive. Like a lot of legal experts said that his idea was actually a relatively good one. It was certainly worth a try. I didn't last long enough because like he and I, who had been good friends before, butted heads endlessly once we became co-founders. And within about 6 months, he had fired me. as the co-founder. And that turned out to be good because when the litigation started, I was already gone and he lost and the business was wound up and he's back in other businesses today. But the experience for me was really great. I left IBM and I joined this startup. We failed. And it gave me this great opportunity to sit back and like reevaluate, like, what am I doing? What do I want to do? And I went back to IBM. But what was interesting is IBM first called me. They're like, hey, we want you to come back. Just take your old job. And I'm like, nah. There's one job I really want, which is I had been temporarily the head of the global electronics industry. And I just loved it. It was so much fun, like being a thought leader, kind of setting the strategic plan. I discovered, I've discovered along the way as I've gone up through the levels, I'm a very good doer. I'm an extremely diligent doer. I'm a very organized project manager.
Mm-hmm.
I am a fairly mediocre salesperson and a terrible negotiator. Like, I'm a pretty honest salesperson. I'm not good at like overselling things, and I'm a terrible negotiator. Like, I don't know how to play the game. Um, you know, a lot of people on the other end of a negotiation, their opening bid is something outrageous, and their philosophy is it doesn't hurt to ask, and all you have to do is say no. I get upset if you ask something outrageous. I'm like, do you think I'm an idiot? Like, I get offended. And I know you're not supposed to get offended, but I get offended. I'm not a good haggler, by the way. Like, I'm no good in any Middle Eastern bazaar. They're like,
this is the price. And you're like, okay. And like, what?
Yeah. No, this is the price. I'm like, that's too much. And that's too much. And like, well, no, wait. We can lower the price. I'm like, so I don't have the patience for this, right? So I'm not good at this. So I'm not a great salesperson. When I was a sales executive at IBM, like with a quota, like an individual quota, I would say that I barely made quota. Like, I wasn't bad, but I wasn't great. I was no like amazing.
You don't have that like killer, like I'm going to sell it at all costs.
Right. And I am also not really good at like sort of mapping politics. Like, like I know people who would sit down, they'd make an org chart and they'd be like, this is Bob, he's the decision maker. This is Jane, she's the most important influencer. This is Charlie, he says he's the decision maker, but he's not that guy, right? Those people, I'm not them. I wish I was, but I'm not. I'm a terrible negotiator, mediocre salesperson. It turns out I'm an amazing, like, big picture leader.
Yeah.
Like, I'm great at laying out this is where the industry is going. I'm great at getting people excited about the vision, and that kind of thing. So, good, terrible, very good. And I was like, I told IBM, like, this is the job I really want to do. Like, I think I was good at it, but I know it's not available because there's somebody else in it. Well, that person, about 3 months later, he got called off to like IBM assigned him to take care of an emergency, like somewhere. And they called me up and they're like, listen, Paul, that job that you wanted, we also think you would be good for it. And we would like you to come back and do it. And so I did. I went back and I spent 5 of some of the happiest years of my life as the VP of the global electronics industry at IBM.
Fantastic. And so how did you bring thought leadership into that role?
So I just love that job. And it was one of the greatest honors of my life was to work with such insanely smart people. Like, it is crazy to work at a company with a math department, right? And I imagine that this is what it's like to be a senior executive at Google these days. Like, you have this massive R&D budget, you have mountains of brilliant people. That's what it was like at IBM. Then we had, and I had a budget, and we got to do fun things. I think I'm a reasonably creative thinker, but we had so much fun. Every year you had to do some kind of significant piece of thought leadership. And one of the things that I got very excited and interested in is this idea of like 3D printing, standardized software and hardware development. And so one year what we did, we wanted to understand, like, what will 3D printing and other advanced manufacturing technologies do? How will it reshape supply chains and things like that? So what we did was what everybody likes to do are these like surveys that I think are bullshit. They like ask 1,000 people, like, do you think clouds are pretty? And they will all say yes. And then they will issue a press release and they will call it quantitative research. It's not quantitative research. They asked a bunch of people who know nothing about a topic they don't understand. They got a poorly informed opinion
Blasé
and they dressed
answer.
it up as research. It's BS,
Okay.
right?
So
That
what
is
did you
like
do?
89% of all like corporate research. And that is a true fact I just made up.
It's the best kind. Can't refute it.
Yeah. So I was like, I want to do something substantive. I want to do something meaningful. Like, and what we decided to do was we would take a bunch of typical products, an electric razor, a washing machine. Well, I can't remember the other. Electric razor, a washing machine, something else. So we bought them and we tore them down. We literally tore them down. We scanned each part with a 3D scanner, and then we assessed, could we make this part with a 3D printer? Like, could it be done? What is the technology roadmap for 3D printing? What will the cost look like? And we then reconstructed these machines using 3D printing, open source hardware electronics, open source software, and put them back together and built a supply chain model and a carbon footprint, and then projected out, like, at what point does this become more efficient than a traditional manufacturing model? And we were then able to produce really meaningful, like, hard data on which of these advanced manufacturing technologies are most likely to get adopted, which industries will they have impact in, like, quantifiably, what does this look like for your supply chain, for your carbon footprint, all kinds of things like that. And
That was probably
that
fun.
was awesome.
Yeah.
It was fun, right? So, and that was a project 1 year, and we called it the software-defined supply chain. You can still find it on the IBM website somewhere if you Google it. So the next year, I had this. I was out at Samsung. I was talking to this guy, TJ Kong. At the time he was the head of the Multimedia Solution Center, and he's like, "Paul, this IoT thing is going to kill us, right?" And I'm like, "Why? It seems like it's a good business." He's like, "Yeah, so it's a great business when you sell a phone for $1,000 and you have to spend $10 a year on cloud infrastructure, and after 3 years, people throw away the phone. That's fine. But what if you sell a smart light bulb that has an expected LED lifespan of 25 years and you want to manage that device? Do you think consumers and businesses are willing to pay a subscription fee for the cloud-based infrastructure management of your light bulbs? I don't think so. And the cost of doing it's going to absolutely kill our margins, right?" And he's like, we have to have a solution. And about the same time, I was talking to TSMC and some of the other big chip companies. TSMC, I was the executive sponsor for the relationship with ASML. TSMC was one of my clients. And there's another Taiwanese semiconductor company we're working with as well. And one of the things I learned was that the smarts in a dishwasher, which are not very smart, and the smarts in an iPhone or an Android phone, which are very smart, cost the same to manufacture. And I had this, like, aha moment, like, this is crazy. Like, why do I need cloud infrastructure to manage all these devices? All of these devices will soon have computing power equivalent to a phone. Many of them, like dishwashers and refrigerators, are going to be connected to power. They're going to be near Wi-Fi. Like, if the cloud is just somebody else's computer, why can't the cloud for appliances just be somebody else's washer dryer? We can make a distributed cloud that creates, manages, operates itself. So I went back to Samsung, like, hey, for this year's research project, we want to, like, build a prototype. Will you work with us on this? And they're like, yes, this is a cool idea, right? Wouldn't know if it'll work, but it's a cool idea. So we get started, start looking at, like, decentralized computing, distributed computing. And one of my colleagues comes to me and he's like, hey, have you heard of Bitcoin? I'm
I
like,
saw
no.
this coming.
And he's like, yeah, so Bitcoin is like this distributed computing system, and we can use it for this, like, decentralized cloud. And it was so and what we loved about it was there's all these decentralized computing infrastructure at the time, but we had this story, like, we were like, one day the Internet of Things will be monetized. And when that happens, wouldn't it be cool if you already had an infrastructure that could make payments and take payments and have contracts? Like, how brilliant would that? You'd be completely future proofed.
What year was this?
And this was 2013.
Okay.
And a couple of months later, we were like, this Bitcoin thing is really slow. Like it's not working for us. We need to find something faster. Like a block time of 10 minutes. The joke that we had was like, imagine you're standing outside the door of your house. It's raining and your smartphone is trying to get a block completed to authorize the door to unlock, right? That is going to be, you're going to be very wet by the time you get in the house. So a couple months later, he comes back and he's like, hey, I've met this other guy. And he's got a cool idea. It's like Bitcoin, but like faster and programmable. I'm like, that is what we want. Let's go work with him.
Was that his name?
Vitalik. And so we built our prototype for Samsung on the alpha version of Ethereum with help from Vitalik. And we launched it. We showed the prototype at the Consumer Electronics Show in January 2015. And by that point,
wow,
I
so
was
early.
I was completely done with like any other form of technology. It's like blockchain is going to completely transform finance, supply chains, business operations, cloud infrastructure. This is what I want to do. And IBM said, no, that is not what you're going to do. But you need to get back to your regular job selling like tech stuff. And I was like, I want to do this. And we had a little sort of parting of the ways at that point because I was a blockchain guy.
So did you go like shop around for a new home that was going to give you the platform to go ahead and like be the blockchain guy, and then you found EY, or was EY looking for somebody to do that?
EY was looking for people who had expertise in like IoT and other emerging technologies. They weren't too specific. And I got to EY, and within about 6 months, I had sort of passed on the IoT stuff and sort of made blockchain my full-time job. And it's actually, your question is really timely because this fiscal year, right? So fiscal FY26, which started in July for us, is the 10th year in which EY blockchain is an official funded business activity of EY.
Wow. Okay, so tell me what that actually means. Like, what is EY blockchain? How does it function within EY? What do you offer to the community? And I guess at some point you could explain to me like how you spun out the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. I'd love to hear also about your book, which I know is a big part as well. So I guess you get to EY, you become the blockchain guy. 8 months into the gig, and like now a decade later, we're here. How do we get here?
So we got here one little mistake at a time. It's the best way to understand this.
Only way to do
it. Right. So at the beginning, it was just like, hey, should be a market. And so I went, one of the things that we learned very quickly is that although we had quite a few people already who were doing things like financial statement audits for crypto, they did not understand at a very deep level the math. These are not mathematicians, they're auditors. And they knew quite a bit about Bitcoin, not mathematicians. And I went to senior leaders and said, listen, just as we started,
or the tech math.
The tech math, right? They're perfectly fine on the accounting math, but fundamentally, I said, there's some risk to us as a firm, right? This whole infrastructure is built on some quite advanced cryptography, and the truth is, we don't really have anybody inside the firm who deeply understands this mathematics. We need to hire a few of these people, right? We need them because we are. We are taking some risk. But when you sign an audit, that is unlimited liability. Unlimited liability. That is, you want to terrify somebody, say the words unlimited liability.
Dude, I'm a lawyer.
Right?
Everything I do has unlimited liability.
So unlimited liability, right? You get it, right? That's a very scary thing. I'm like, unlimited liability, think about that, right? Imagine a hedge fund that has a lot of Bitcoin collapses, like not a good thing. So we got to hire some smart tech people. And one of the things that EY really wanted to do is to basically figure out how to make software. Like if you think about what consulting firms do, we come up with intellectual property, right? And then we give it to clients. But if you want to have any kind of recurring revenue stream, how do you do that? The answer is you embed intellectual property in software. So one of the things that questions we're asking is, can we learn how to build SaaS business applications and embed our intellectual property in some of our clients' business operations? So we started down this path of building software, figuring out what we could use it for, and so on. And very quickly, when you go down this path, you learn some really important things. Like, we we started thinking about there's so many great use cases, supply chain, business operations, all of this stuff. And within a very, very short period of time, we figured out very quickly that like none of this works if you don't have privacy. Right? The use cases are extremely limited. And by the way, private blockchains do not solve that problem. Like the number one myth about private blockchains is they have privacy. They don't. So none of this works without privacy. And at that point, we're like, okay. And this, by the way, this was true of like e-commerce. It didn't really take off until we had encryption. We're like, we need encryption for blockchains. Nobody else was working on it. So we then went out and hired a bunch of like PhD cryptographers and started working on Nightfall. And I really thought this would take like 2 years. Here we are, where it's like 8 years later. We're 8 years into what I thought was a 2-year project, and we're finally getting ready for production, like serious production at volume. The math of zero knowledge turns out to be way harder than like the standard encryption that we used to have, that we have for like e-commerce. But long story short, all this time, we're building a business in services. We're building a business in financial statement audits, in consulting. We're building internal tools. We built some external products that we could use for limited applications on public blockchains, and we started building prototypes of stuff that use privacy. So all this time over the last 8 years, we've been building a services business and the software business. The global part of EY blockchain, the thing I'm sort of really directly responsible, we do the marketing. We do the strategic direction setting with like our focus on Ethereum. We do the heavy duty engineering and the research, but then each country and region is responsible for their own service lines of auditors, accountants, consultants, and tax experts.
Okay, I want to double click on that part for 1 second. It might be slightly boring for the audience, but like as a service provider who typically refers clients to other service providers, I do want to understand outside of the services business what those other products and services that the global aspect provides, and also specifically the platform that you mentioned, the Nightfall and the Starlight, what exactly those are.
So from a software standpoint, the aspiration is we want to build all the things that people need, that large businesses need to do business safely and securely on chain.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and when I was at McKinsey, there was this benchmark. It was called MISI, mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. If you had a framework for something that was MISI, that means you had completely done it, everything. I think we have a kind of a MISI approach to thinking about software for the industry. And It's very simple. All business agreements, 100% of business agreements boil down to this: the exchange of money for stuff under the terms of some kind of agreement.
Mm-hmm.
I can tokenize the money, or I can tokenize the stuff, and I can make the agreement a smart contract, right?
Okay.
So on chain, I have the ability to represent and execute 100% of all business agreements. So as a starting point, I need to be able to tokenize stuff, tokenize money, and craft business agreements. So we started by building a product called OpsChain. And what OpsChain does, it's a SaaS application that allows you to tokenize stuff, tokenize money. We don't actually tokenize
When
money.
you say stuff, what are you referring to?
Anything, products, services, whatever it is that you want to sell on chain, commodities, doesn't matter what it is, you can turn it into a digital token.
Representative of the actual product.
Exactly.
The issue lies in like what or who determines whether or not the actual KPIs were met, to trigger the next step in the smart contract, and what happens when there's not consensus on those things.
There you go, fussing with all the reality-based like challenges of actually executing this.
It sounded so pretty before you messed it up.
Right. It sounded very comprehensive before you inserted reality into the conversation. And this is like the really hard part of. This is a really hard part of the conversation. The hard part of the work is like when concept meets reality. So we're building these tools, OpsChain, tokenize stuff, tokenize money, and then we had a product called OpsChain tokenization that does that. We had notarization for notarizing documents, and then we had created something called OpsChain Contract Manager for implementing contracts. And we have a lot of good individual specific use cases that scale up provided you don't need privacy. So you want to do like supply chain traceability of something that's public, easy peasy, tokenize the batch or something else. Like we do that for Peroni, the beer company in Italy. We've done it for vaccine makers. We have like lots of food companies. There's lots of things that people are comfortable tokenizing and making public and showing
You
the
do the
history of the product.
tokenization, like EY provides that
Yes.
service. Interesting.
It's an API. It's an API into our system. So we kind of hide all the complexity. You give us, we plug into your
You have
ERP
like a nice,
system.
pretty interface, and people click a bunch of buttons, and then you do the back end.
Exactly. Right. Spits out tokens on the other side. People have this like good historical record of like, where did your beer come from? Where did your fruit come from? That kind of thing.
Okay.
Right. Or vaccines. And then we also have a couple of really awesome case examples of the power of smart contracts. And my favorite is the work that we did from Microsoft on the Xbox video game network. And Microsoft had about 30,000, I think, or 3,000 contracts with video game suppliers by country, by product, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And each of them had similar but slightly different terms. You get a percentage of the take, right? It changes based on how successful you are.
Purchases, et cetera.
Exactly. Their billing system wasn't very flexible. And so what was happening is they would get the actual data from the Xbox transaction system, and it would take them about 45 days to produce each monthly invoice. Okay. When we turned those traditional paper contracts into digital smart contracts, we took that 45-day process down to a few minutes.
Right, because it was all digital and like easily verifiable.
Yeah, and the really cool thing about smart contracts is as long as the rules that you've encoded are logical and fact-based, it'll go execute them, right? And it's almost infinitely flexible if you have the source data, right? We have a rebate at this threshold, whatever it is. So 99% less cycle time, 40% lower cost, and everybody's so much happier because like the results are basically available nearly immediately with endless granular detail. So hugely successful project. Couldn't scale it because it all had to be kept behind the firewall because Microsoft can't have people coming in and seeing their competitors' contracts. Fast forward 8 years or 5 years after the end of this Microsoft engagement, we can now do the same thing on a public blockchain with privacy technology using zero-knowledge circuits. So we proved in these early days a lot of the value proposition, but there were and there are still huge challenges in making this all come together. Like lots of people sometimes ask me, Paul, I heard like enterprise blockchain was a thing, but honestly, no one's using it. And the answer is it's not widely used yet because there's still a lot of obstacles to implementation, which I think we're in like if we're thinking about running like a 26.2 mile marathon, we're in like the last mile. We're very, very tired, but it's the last mile. I can see the finish line. Like we are so close to the privacy tech works. The public blockchains have scaled up. The transaction capacity is available. We can do complex circuits on chain. Like now, all the pieces are there. They just need to come together in a way that's going to scale up massively. But what we've been doing over the last few years is basically proving out this value proposition one step at a time, while basically pioneering all of the zero knowledge privacy math required to execute these transactions. Right? We've been working on privacy tech. You know, there's really only two firms that have been in this for as long as we have, is us and Aztec in the UK that have been working on this. And we are getting, I think, we are really getting close to the finish line in terms of being able to show like multiple live customers using this technology for privacy-enabled transactions.
You're making me choke up because you're talking about the last mile of the marathon. I ran my first marathon 3 years ago in New York, and I cried all through that last mile. And like first of all, I could hear the passion in your voice, as you know, I know how long you've been working on this, and like I'm sure you're super excited that you're finally getting there, like towards the finish line. And it is really very exciting. Like in the end, like the reason that nobody's done it yet is because there were so many kinks, and you needed somebody, some big player with deep enough pockets and enough passion, and a guy like you behind the wheel to say like, we're going to be the ones to do this right and do it first. And it's exciting that EY have, you know, taken the lead there.
Yeah, I'm incredibly excited. I want to talk about one other thing, which is like my passion for Ethereum.
So I wanted to ask, what's the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance?
So all through this time at EY, I'm a big historian of technology. My mother was a mainframe software developer. My father was a nuclear physicist. Like, I grew up with computers at home. I love the history, and I love history generally. So I love the history of technology. And one of the things that having being an old man and having been through like the internet, .com bubble 1.0 is I have an appreciation for the power of open networks. There was a time when people were like, it's got to be AOL, right? And no, the open internet was what was triumphed. Like over and over again, we have seen open systems and standards triumph. And I looked at Ethereum as at public blockchains, and like I instinctively immediately knew like this is a great historical analogy. Private chains are never going to succeed. They just aren't. And if there's like the first, like honestly, 8 or 9 years of my time at EY was this nonstop battle with people who are like, why can't we build on private chains? Why won't you build on this? Why won't you build on that? Like, and I stuck to my guns all this time. It's like, it's very simple. There are two things. Number one, there is no point in having a centrally run blockchain, like absolutely pointless, right? Number two, private
Defeats the
networks just
purpose.
don't succeed.
Yeah.
Right. Private networks don't succeed. And then people are like, okay, fine, Paul, but why Ethereum? And the answer is not that Ethereum is the best. I think of myself as a pragmatic ETH-maxi. And what I mean by that is look at Windows. Look at any other like dominant technology platform. No one should make the argument that it is the best of all possible technology platforms. What it is it's the one that was good enough when we achieved widespread adoption. And people are like, but this platform can do this and that platform can do that. I'm like, yeah, I get it. But most people are on Ethereum. And so long as that continues to be true, I'm going to adopt the sort of GE strategic maxim, which is I want to be number one in the biggest market, not pretty good in seven. I don't want to be pretty good at 5 different things, or more accurately, I don't want to suck in 5 different blockchains. I want to be the best at Ethereum. I believe there are increasing rewards to excellence. So if you tell me, Paul, you have a limited R&D budget, you have a limited engineering budget, what are you going to spend it on? My answer is Ethereum, right? I want to be the absolute best at the biggest blockchain ecosystem. And no matter what else you might say, Ethereum has been the biggest blockchain ecosystem, programmable blockchain ecosystem since the day it was invented. And it's kind of funny now after 8 or 9 years, people are like, yeah, Paul, I was always with you. I'm like, oh, no, you weren't, right? You were busy, trying to cut a side deal with some private blockchain provider. They don't work. They will never work. And I don't lose any sleep over all of those chains. And so, of course, when it came time, one of the things that I wanted to do was to write a book. And that's something I always wanted. I've contributed to a lot of books. I was like, I want to write a book. Mary Lashley, who's this brilliant professor at the University of Arkansas, and honestly, like one of the smartest people I've ever met. We were talking, and I was like, I can't find a publisher who's going to give me a reasonable time. She's like, oh, we'll publish your book. And so I wrote a book. I wrote the book that I would have wanted to read when I got into this business.
That's the
And
best
it's
way to
called
put it.
Ethereum for Business. And it's very simple. Like it's in 3 parts. Part 1, like, what do
What is it?
blockchains do?
Mhm.
Right. Especially Ethereum. Right. Part 2, like, what's it good for? Supply chain, payments, foreign trade, etc. Part 3, like, how do you deal with all the complications, like audits, carbon footprint, security, that kind of thing. And it it's non-technical, plain English, and it's the book I think I would have wanted to read as a non-programmer business executive who was like, why on earth should I care or be interested? And why specifically? And I didn't call it blockchains for business. I called it Ethereum for business for a very specific reason, which is that I very specifically believe that based on the history of technology, Ethereum is the winner and is likely to continue to be the winner.
Okay. And what's the alliance?
The Enterprise Ethereum Alliance is not something I started.
Okay.
It is something of which I became a member.
Okay.
Because obviously we're a big enterprise. We love Ethereum. We want to be members. It was actually started, I think, in 2021 or 2020. EY became a member shortly after that. I was on the board for a while. And the original board leadership stepped down about just about 2 years ago. And it was a very strange thing. Like, we were in the board meeting, and the current chairman was like, listen, I think it's time after like 4 years for me to move on, right? Like I'll stay on the board, but I'm not going to be the chairman anymore. Like we need to have somebody else. And I was like, okay. And I'm thinking, we should have like a little search committee and we should decide who the next chairman is. And he's just like, I think Paul should be the chairman. And like 3 other board members like, yeah, I agree. I think we should just make Paul the chairman. And before, like literally in 30 seconds, somehow I'm the chairman of the board. So that happened, and it was really awesome and a huge compliment. So I didn't know how to turn it down. Not that I would have wanted to, but it just happened so quickly. And it was so nice the way everyone was just like, yeah, we should make Paul the chairman. Like he's clearly crazy about this thing. So he's the right guy. And it was also a really good time because the EEA had sort of been flirting with private chains and private variants of Ethereum and stuff like that. And there was a consensus that like we needed to get back to like the root issue, which is we're a public blockchain organization. Ethereum is a public blockchain. It's the winning platform. And so as the chairman of the EEA, I did promise, so we will continue to go in the direction of public blockchains. Although to take the job, I did have to promise to be more diplomatic about private chains, which is why you will no longer hear me name check specific chains or shame them or anything like that. I just tell my clients, I really think you'll be better off on a public chain like Ethereum.
Okay, very nice, very nice. I feel like we've come full circle there. So do you believe in the ETH as a currency as well, like from an investment perspective?
So I never give people investment advice. I'm a huge believer in Ethereum.
All the disclaimers apply. I'm generally just curious, as somebody who believes so much in the tech, what your thoughts are on the not underlying but overriding currency.
Yeah, I fundamentally I believe deeply in it, but I think it's a long-term play. Like the issue you got to keep in mind is that some of the value of ETH comes from transaction fees, and the network gets more efficient over time. Yeah. Right? The network gets more efficient over time. And so there are going to be times when the network's efficiency improves faster than demand, and then the clearing price is going to go down. And so it's not a given that just because demand in any particular year increases, that the price is going to go way higher. With that, I'm afraid I have to wrap it up because I have a meeting now.
Thank you so much.
I can't believe this hour has gone in like 5 seconds.
Thank you so much. This has been fantastic. I will ask you 2 things, okay? Number one, if you could just leave our audience with a message for those who want to continue to learn more about EY, global blockchain, and about the Alliance, and about all the fantastic work that you do and the bikes and bike rides and runs that you go on. What's the best place to follow you? And number 2, if you could bring me a book to Buenos Aires, because like to have things shipped to Israel is like insane. I will happily pay you for the physical copy if you can fit it in your suitcase.
Excellent. So you can find me at pbrody on Twitter or pbrody on LinkedIn. We're blockchain.ey.com as an official website, and our Nightfall and Starlight privacy code is public domain, open source contribution to community. It's at github.com/EY-blockchain, and I will bring you a book to Buenos Aires. See you there.
Take care, Paul. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Code. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, share with your friends, and to tune in again next week for more fun and insightful conversation.